Hello again, everybody. This is the Imhotep Ramses II, also known as Omar Lyons. You can visit us on our Facebook page, Omar Imhotep Ramses Lyons, and our business page on that Facebook page is Omar Lyons Educational Foundation. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in today. Glad to have you. So this video is in our series of financial fundamentals or financial education, and in this video we're going to touch on three basic areas: pay yourself first, compound interest, and stock market investing. So it's a brief video. It's for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes. So today, first and foremost, I'd like to give credit to a lot of people who have influenced me and influenced a lot of people. Warren Buffett, who you all should know by now is the greatest investor in the history of the world. And Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and there are hosts of others, Jim Rohn and so on. You can look them up and you can read. You can go to our Facebook page. We have a list of recommended books that you can read and buy and educate and empower yourself. All right. So today we're going to talk about pay yourself first, PYF, pay yourself first. It seems pretty simple, but it's very, very powerful. We're also going to talk about investing in the stock market for beginners, and we're also going to talk about compound interest. So pay yourself first. The first time I think I heard of it was from The Richest Man in Babylon. This book, it's a small book. It's recommended on our Facebook page, The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. And we've recommended a host of other books also. And in this book, it teaches you to pay yourself first, which means to set aside at least 10% of whatever your income is. That means, for example, even if you make minimum wage, which today is probably $7.25, and if you work 40 hours a week, that's about $300 roughly. So even if from that $300, you set aside 10% of that, 10% of $300, so we're also incorporating some GED mathematics in today's lesson, right? So 10% of $300 is $30. So you can save $30 a week. Wow, that seems pretty exciting, doesn't it? Anyway, just a little sarcasm. But $30 a week, if you're only making minimum wage and you're working 40 hours a week, for example, you can start with $30 a week set aside. Now, paying yourself first doesn't mean that you take that 10%, that $30 a week, if it's minimum wage. Obviously, if you're making a lot more, it can be a lot more. If you're making $6,000 a week, then you take $600 a week and set aside. And what you do is you set it aside and you mark it off as not for expenditures, NFE, not for expenditures. That means you don't spend it, you don't go to the mall, you don't go anywhere, you don't go to a fast food restaurant, you don't go eating out, you don't go buy a new pair of shoes with it or whatever it is. You set it aside in a safe place, either physically or in a bank account or somewhere, and you only set it aside for investment for your future and for your family's future long term. You don't spend it no matter what happens. And that's the principle of pay yourself first, because the idea is that if you do not pay yourself first, then you will probably end up not paying yourself, because by the time the bills come around and the rent or mortgage or whatever it is, lights, eating, food, and so on and so forth, you have a family and so on, and you pay the bills, then if you try to pay yourself last, you probably will not have anything left by the time you finish paying everybody else. So the whole principle is pay yourself first, and then everything else will fall into place. So this simple example here is going to incorporate compound interest and the stock market investing for beginners a little bit later. So if you start even with $30 per week, it seems pretty small and insignificant, but with the power of compound interest, right? That's another principle that Warren Buffett actually used to help him to become the richest man in the world. Compound interest is simply money making money. It's the interest that the interest makes. So if you make some money, or if you make some interest or dividend on your money, and then you reinvest that, and then that starts to make money, then that's compound interest, which is considered by some to be a true phenomenon. It is said that Albert Einstein called this the eighth wonder of the world. I'm not sure about that, but it certainly seems to be a phenomenon. All right, it adds up, and the banks and the credit card companies and the finance companies and so on, they know the power of compound interest because they use it in their favor. So I'm encouraging everybody to use compound interest in your interest. Okay, and let it add up and compound and so on and so forth. And it's pretty exciting, actually. It doesn't start off exciting, but eventually it does get really, really, really exciting. All right, so you start off with just $30 per week, for example, if you're making minimum wage, right? But guess what? There are 52 weeks in a year, right? So 30 times 52 in a year, you'll have what? $1,560. And this is just principal, right? This is just the amount that you're saving. This is not compound interest or dividends added to it yet. So this is just money set aside, all right? So that's in 1 year. In 10 years, you're looking at $15,600. And of course, in 20 years, you'd be looking at $31,200. Now, you might look at this and you say, well, gee, yeah, but that's 20 years, 30,000 in 20 years. That's like a whole career or a lifetime almost, but not quite. This is just the principle. Now, had you started to invest that early, meaning, let's say within a year of starting to save this, or a few years, then this would, if your investment works out, and that's another thing to talk about maybe later, but this should be a whole lot higher. It should be a lot more than $31,200 because this is just the principal amount. So again, this is PYF, pay yourself first, no less than 10% of whatever you make. If you make $200, set aside at least $20. If you make $1,000, set aside at least $100. If you make $10, set aside at least $1. And don't spend it frivolously, or don't spend it on expenses. And that's the principle of pay yourself first, 10%. Okay? And then the compound interest is interest on interest. So when your money starts to earn interest, and of course, if you leave it in the bank, your interest is going to be pretty minimal. The banks, I don't even think, pay 1%. But if you invest, for example, in the stock market, if you invest in the stock market and then the dividends or interest start to come in, then you don't spend it. You reinvest those dividends and then let compound interest work in your interest. Okay, so that brings us to the basics of stock market investing. So with the stock market, you're basically investing in businesses or in companies. There are a lot of different companies that trade publicly on the stock market, and if you invest in a part of them, some of them will pay you dividends. Some of them do not pay dividends. Some of them are growth stocks, and they just don't pay you dividends. But there are others that pay you dividends typically every 3 months. So every 3 months they give you something back. So some stocks for the year might pay you a total of 4%, or some 3%, some 5%, some 6%, and so on and so forth. So for example, if a stock pays you a total of 6% for the year, and it pays dividends every quarter, every 3 months, then you'd be getting about 1.5% every 3 months, right? Every 3 months, that stock is going to pay you 1.5%. And then if you reinvest that, then the power of compound interest will work for you. However, we'll talk more about this in our other videos coming up. Thank you for coming in, and thank you for tuning in. It was my pleasure. I hope this was educational and informational for you. And here's Jay Brian making her entrance. So my assistant is late today, but you know what they say, better late than never. So here's my assistant, Jay Brian, and she's here to help us out. But we've covered the lesson for today, and we got through it successfully. So thanks for coming, Jay Brian. We got through it, baby. thanks again. Feel free to visit our Facebook page, Omar Imhotep Ramses Lyons, and the business page on that Facebook page, Omar Lyons Educational Foundation. And I hope this was helpful for you. Please like, subscribe, reach out to us, contact us if you have any questions, or if you need to do any consultations, or anybody interested in starting to invest in the stock market but not sure where to begin or how to begin, or think that they need a whole lot of money, which is not true. Feel free to reach out to us, and we'll see how we can best serve you. So again, have a great day, have a great week, save, be financially responsible, and pay yourself first all the time, at least 10%. It truly does work. Thank you, be blessed, have a great day. This is Imhotep Ramses II, also known as Omar Lyons. Take care till next time.